that I talked about, the $11 billion, was $1.5 billion in MTA payroll tax. That was 0.3% of your payroll dollars. And every small business, every not-for-profit, every government entity, roughly one third of 1% of your payroll going to the MTA, and it was intended to eliminate the MTA deficit. And if you've been reading the newspapers, you remember that about 3 or 4 weeks ago, the MTA said that its deficit was still at the same level that it had been projected to be at before the taxes were increased. So we're still in the same situation, except that we now have that tax burden on us. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Matt, there was a Long Island company that filed a suit basically saying that tax violated the state's constitution. Any idea what the status of that lawsuit is?
I don't know the status of the suit. My guess would be that that's a hard argument to make. The legislature has the power to impose taxes. I doubt that the state's courts would overturn that. But there may be some creative argument of the state constitution, but I wouldn't put a lot of money on it winning. Yes.
At the last LIA not-for-profit meeting, we all did kind of an informal survey, and a lot of people, particularly the larger businesses, admitted that the payroll tax was so significant for them that they actually cut people.
Yes.
So how is this a positive? I mean, so now that I'm not a business person, so I'm trying to understand how creating this tax, which most people say led to a layoff, if not more than one layoff, is a good. I don't understand.
The short answer to that is that the legislature didn't believe that that would happen. I mean, they genuinely didn't believe that that would happen, and that's a whole other conversation. I mean, the leaders of the legislature have no business experience, and I don't mean that as a personal criticism, it's just a fact. They don't. So to them, that sort of thing is more theoretical than real. They figure.
Did other businesses throughout Long Island do the same thing? Did they say, well, we can't hire this other person because now we have this payroll?
I think it depends on the business, but many small businesses were put in that situation. Many not-for-profits were put in that situation, including hospitals. This was the subject of a pretty intense debate at the board of the LIA, and on the one hand, you've got to support the transit system, but on the other hand, is the timing of a tax. Right in the middle of a recession, when people are literally hanging on, if you're breaking even 0.3% of your payroll, all of a sudden puts you into a negative situation. So there were a lot of people who were breaking even, for whom, in good times, 0.3% might not have been a big deal, but at that time, it was a very big deal. And I'll be right there, Phyllis. And the way they did it, imposing the tax in October, November, retroactive to the beginning of the year, so you had to pay it in one big lump, also was not a very popular decision. I can tell you there is an awful lot of anger about it, and for good reason, Phil.
I was just going to make a comment. I'm a trustee at North Shore LIJ, and I feel free to say this only because I think it was Mike who said it at our LIA board meeting. They paid $12 million to the MTA tax.
That's huge.
Yes, and you have to understand that North Shore LIJ is a non-profit hospital, and not only that, they use their money to write off patient debt people can't pay. They paid $80 million in patient debt for money that they raised from citizens like you and I. And then they had to pay $12 million to the MTA tax.
So it really was a very significant tax for a lot of people. The budget, the potential effect of cuts, and I'll go into this, I guess, in a little bit more detail. Lorraine Deller is here as the executive director of the Nassau-Suffolk School Board Association, who can tell you, probably spend the rest of the day telling you what the effect of cuts are. Obviously, cuts in state aid to local schools have a significant impact on the operations of the schools. They also can have a very significant impact on the taxes that you pay. Because the schools have to operate at a certain level. They're mandated by law to operate at a certain level. They can't drop below that level. They're allowed to. So if state aid is reduced, the only source of income that they have to deal with their operations is increasing property taxes. So there is a direct correlation between reduced state aid and increased local property taxes. So this is a big deal, and I'll mention it again. What happens in the state's budget deficits really can have a significant effect on businesses, on personal lives.
From the first slide, when you had how bad it is, one of the things you didn't put on, which you talked about many, many times, is the loss of our young people. Has that changed, or it seems to me it should be bullets?
Yeah, I didn't put that on because I was dealing strictly with economic statistics. Well, Fred is referring to the trend of the loss of people between the ages of 25 and 44 on Long Island, which is the fastest loss rate in the state of New York. And we've seen that from census data. Now we're going to find out by 2011, we're going to find out exactly where we stand because, of course, in 2010, you have a census, a decennial census. Up to this point, starting in 2000, we have been basing our determination of where we stand with respect to the loss of young people based upon Census Bureau annual estimates of population, which is done with a variety of statistics I won't go into. But I would say we haven't seen any evidence, I haven't seen any evidence that the loss rate of younger people is declining. However, it could be during the recession that has happened because it's not as easy to move and get another job in another place and things of that kind. So in fact, if I were to guess, I would say it is likely that the rate of loss on Long Island has probably declined during the recessionary period. Then you have to be concerned about, well, what happens when the recession is over? Does it take back up again, or do people stay?
How do you have job creation if you don't have it?
How do you have job creation if you don't have people? That's right. Okay, local budget and tax issues. See, the good news just keeps on coming. Nassau County is experiencing deficits according to the Nassau Interim Finance Authority, or NIFA, which was created 8 years ago to oversee Nassau finances. There is a significant concern that Nassau's budget deficit could get as high as $400 million within the next 2 years. So $400 million at a county level is an enormous figure. I think, if my memory is correct, that 1% of real property taxes brings in only $11 million, a 1% increase. So you get to $400 million, you're talking real money, and not easy for a county to make up. One of the reasons for it is that Nassau County, like other counties in New York, is largely supported by sales tax. So when sales tax revenue goes down as significantly as it has in Nassau County, that's a big issue. In Nassau, sales tax revenue relative to Suffolk County was declining so significantly before the recession began. In other words, people were going to Suffolk or into the city to buy, and they weren't buying as much in Nassau County as they had been before. Nassau, as you may know, has, if you live in Nassau or have a business in Nassau, you are painfully aware of this, has one of the most screwed up assessment systems you could imagine. Almost everybody challenges their assessment in what are called certiorari proceedings. I can tell you from, I used to work in a court system. Nassau County has about 500 to, the last time it was 500 times as many certiorari proceedings as any other place in the state of New York. It's a system that is way out of control and has created huge deficits that the county has to pay for through operating funds. The new county executive, Ed Mangano, who will be speaking at the breakfast on Thursday, has created an assessment review process and a team, and put in charge a former member of the board of the LIA, Pat Foy, who I will say is one of the few people I know of who is capable of trying to figuring out how to solve this problem. So that's a good thing, and we'll be helping him as much as we can. Suffolk budget is been under a lot of criticism because it is the budget that County Executive Levy put forward, depends